I was there in Kigali in April of 1994. I remember the air thick with a fear you could almost taste. It was a tangible thing, a presence that clung to the humid nights and the unnervingly quiet days. I saw humanity at its absolute worst, a descent into a madness that still haunts my waking hours and my dreams. The sounds from that time are etched into my memory, the chilling broadcasts from the radio, the distant screams that were never distant enough, and the deafening silence that followed. We stood as witnesses to a planned and executed eradication of a people, and that experience changes a person forever. Today is October 17th, 2025, more than 3 decades later, and the duty to bear witness has not faded. We must remember. I think of the faces. I see them clearly. The face of a child peeking from behind his mother's legs, his eyes wide with a confusion that would soon turn to terror. The face of an old man, his dignity stripped away, his life's journey ending at a dusty roadblock manned by boys with machetes and hatred in their eyes. These were not abstract numbers. They were individuals, farmers, teachers, doctors, and parents. They had hopes for their children and stories to tell their grandchildren. The genocide was not a spontaneous eruption. It was meticulously orchestrated, coordinated militias, logistics, orders, an extermination campaign that succeeded with terrifying efficiency. The world often simplifies this tragedy, but its roots are complex, tangled in colonial manipulation and political opportunism. Before the killing began, there was a calculated dehumanization. Neighbors taught to see neighbors as cockroaches, an enemy to be eliminated. Poison spread through airwaves day after day until it seeped into the soil of the nation. Hate speech turned ordinary people into killers, convinced their survival required the destruction of others. Genocide begins not with a bang, but with a whisper of hate that grows into a roar. To speak of this time is to speak of profound loss, nearly 1 million lives, a number almost beyond comprehension. It was also the loss of trust, of community, of sanctuary, church and school no longer safe. I stood there, a general with a mandate, but without means. My uniform, meant to protect, became a symbol of collective failure. The burden of that powerlessness is heavy, one we must carry to remember the price of indifference. To understand 1994, we must look back. Hutu and Tutsi lived together, intermarried, shared a language and a culture. Belgian rulers hardened divisions, identity cards, stereotypes, hierarchy, sowing resentment. Extremists later harvested those seeds. This was not an ancient tribal war, but modern political manipulation. The president's plane was shot down. Within hours, militias mobilized. Elements of the army joined. Roadblocks rose across the city. Lists of names guided the hunt. Moderate Hutu and prominent Tutsi targeted. RTLM urged civilians to take up arms, broadcast hate and directed killers to hiding places. 100 days, an estimated 800,000 to 1 million slaughtered. Primarily Tutsi, Hutu moderates and protectors also killed. The cruelty was intimate and personal. Neighbors killed neighbors, teachers their students. Sacred churches became slaughterhouses. This was not distant warfare. It was carried out largely with machetes, clubs and tools at hand. At the Gizimba Memorial Center, killers circled. Damas Gizimba and Carl Wilkins negotiated, called stood guard. They risked everything, saving hundreds of children, a small island of humanity in an ocean of barbarism. But for every rescue, thousands ended in darkness where help could not arrive in time. The international response was a catastrophic failure. UNAMIR, which I commanded, had a limited mandate. We were to monitor peace, not stop genocide, and forbidden to use force except in self-defense. I pleaded for a stronger mandate and reinforcements. A few thousand well-equipped troops could have saved hundreds of thousands. The world knew and looked away. After 10 Belgian peacekeepers were murdered, Belgium withdrew, creating a vacuum instantly exploited. UNAMIR was cut to about 270. We were ordered to be observers as people were hunted, in streets, homes, even UN sites. Officials debated words, avoiding genocide to evade duty under the 1948 Convention. Semantics cost lives. Delay gave killers the time they needed, without fear of intervention. Yet even then, flickers of light remained. Wilkins refused evacuation, spent 100 days delivering food and water to orphans, negotiating with killers. Captain Mbai Diagne ferried people through roadblocks, disarming militia with courage, a true hero, killed by a mortar near the end. Individual courage does not excuse institutional failure, but proves the moral compass can still point true north. When the killing stopped, Rwanda was in ruins, more than buildings and roads, the soul of a nation wounded.